Have you ever wondered how one man could rise from obscurity to conquer a continent, only to see it all crumble? Today, we're diving into the epic story of Napoleon Bonaparte, a figure who reshaped Europe and whose legacy still echoes through our modern world. From military genius to emperor, from visionary reformer to exiled prisoner, this is the story of his incredible rise and dramatic fall. Napoleon was born in 1769 on the island of Corsica, a place far from the center of French power. As a young man, he was an outsider, often teased for his accent and humble origins, but he possessed an iron will and a brilliant mind for military strategy. The chaos of the French Revolution became his ladder. While France was tearing itself apart, Napoleon was proving his worth on the battlefield. His decisive victory at the Siege of Toulon in 1793 put him on the map. He was just 24 years old. His star continued to rise with stunning campaigns in Italy, where his speed, decisiveness, and ability to inspire his troops became legendary. He wasn't just a general, he was a leader who ate with his men, remembered their names, and promised them glory and riches. They would follow him anywhere. But his ambitions didn't stop at the battlefield. After a mixed campaign in Egypt, where he discovered the Rosetta Stone, but was ultimately trapped by the British Navy, he saw a political vacuum back in Paris. In 1799, in a bold move, he staged a coup d'etat, overthrowing the weak Directory government and establishing himself as first consul. At just 30 years old, Napoleon was the most powerful man in France. He promised to bring order to a nation exhausted by a decade of revolution, and he delivered. He centralized the government, stabilized the economy by creating the Bank of France, and began to heal the deep divisions within society. One of his most enduring achievements was the Napoleonic Code. Before this, France's legal system was a confusing mess of local customs and old laws. Napoleon streamlined it all into a single, logical code of civil law. It championed principles like equality before the law, freedom of religion, and the protection of private property. It was so revolutionary that it became the basis for legal systems across Europe and around the world, from Quebec to Louisiana. This wasn't just about conquest, it was about exporting the ideals of the French Revolution, at least the parts he agreed with. In 1804, Napoleon took his power to the next level. In a grand ceremony at Notre Dame Cathedral, he crowned himself Emperor of the French. It was a spectacular display of ambition. He even took the crown from the Pope's hands and placed it on his own head. A clear statement that his authority came from himself, not from God. As emperor, his military campaigns entered their most famous phase. The Battle of Austerlitz in 1805 is often called his masterpiece. Outnumbered by a combined Russian and Austrian army, Napoleon used brilliant deception and strategy to lure them into a trap, achieving a devastating victory. For the next several years, he seemed invincible. He redrew the map of Europe, placing his relatives on the thrones of conquered nations and creating a vast French empire. He implemented what was known as the Continental System, an attempt to cripple his most stubborn enemy, Great Britain, by blocking all European trade with them. But this policy would ultimately backfire. Napoleon's ambition, the very thing that drove his rise, also planted the seeds of his downfall. The constant warfare was draining France's resources and manpower. Nations grew tired of French domination and nationalism. An idea ironically spread by the French Revolution itself began to stir across the continent. The first major crack appeared in Spain. Napoleon's attempt to install his brother on the Spanish throne sparked a brutal, years-long guerrilla war that became known as the Spanish Ulcer, tying down hundreds of thousands of French troops. But the fatal mistake, the turning point of his reign, was the invasion of Russia in 1812. Convinced he could force Tsar Alexander I to submit, Napoleon assembled the Grande Army, a force of over 600,000 soldiers, the largest European army ever seen. The campaign started well, but the Russians refused to engage in a decisive battle. Instead, they retreated deeper and deeper into their vast country, burning crops and villages as they went. When Napoleon finally reached Moscow, he found a deserted city, which was soon set ablaze. With no supplies and the brutal Russian winter setting in, he had no choice but to order a retreat. The retreat from Moscow is one of the most horrific episodes in military history. Starvation, frostbite, and relentless attacks from Russian partisans decimated the Grande Army. Of the more than 600,000 men who entered Russia, fewer than 100,000 staggered out. It was a catastrophe from which Napoleon would never fully recover. Sensing his weakness, the nations of Europe formed a new coalition against him. In 1830, at the Battle of Leipzig, also known as the Battle of Nations, Napoleon was decisively defeated. The Allied armies closed in on Paris, and in April 1814, he was forced to abdicate. He was exiled to the small island of Elba in the Mediterranean. The world thought the Napoleonic era was over. They were wrong. Less than a year later, in a daring gamble, Napoleon escaped from Elba, landed in France, and began a march toward Paris. The soldiers sent to arrest him instead flocked to his banner. Chanting "Vive l'Empereur," he reclaimed his throne without firing a single shot, beginning a period known as the 100 Days. The Allies, stunned by his return, quickly mobilized once more. The final showdown came on June 18, 1815, near a small Belgian village called Waterloo. The Battle of Waterloo was a close-run thing. 4 hours. Napoleon's forces hammered the British and Allied lines commanded by the Duke of Wellington. But Wellington's men held on grimly, waiting for their Prussian allies to arrive. When the Prussians finally crashed into Napoleon's flank late in the day, the French army broke. The dream was over. This time, there would be no second chances. Napoleon was exiled to St. Helena, a remote, windswept island in the middle of the South Atlantic. He spent his final 6 years there, a prisoner of the British, dictating his memoirs and crafting his own legend before dying in 1821 at the age of 51. So what is Napoleon's legacy? It's complicated. To some, he was a tyrant, a warmonger whose ambition led to the deaths of millions. To others, he was a visionary, a modernizer who brought rational government, legal equality, and an end to feudalism. The truth, as it often is, lies somewhere in between. He was a product of the revolution and its destroyer, a champion of liberty and an authoritarian ruler. But his impact is undeniable. The Napoleonic Code remains influential. The concept of a unified, centralized state became the model for modern nations. He sparked the flames of nationalism that would define the 19th and 20th centuries. Love him or hate him. Napoleon Bonaparte was a force of nature who forged the modern world in the crucible of war and revolution. His story serves as a timeless, cautionary tale about the dizzying heights of power and the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition. What do you think? Was Napoleon a hero or a villain? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories that shaped our world. Thanks for watching.